Let me introduce you all, and I think I'm looking here on attendance, and I think we have everybody available at this point in time. So I'll run through introductions, and I think I'll go ahead and do that for everybody, and then we'll run into our presentations here. So we have Roger Todd, Director of Public Transportation. He was with us earlier today, of course, and a key advocate for all the work you guys are doing and how we're supporting you from RMI's perspective. Roger is a Director of Public Transportation responsible for Bermuda's public bus and school bus services. He's leading the low emissions bus initiative, including the delivery of Bermuda's first electric buses in 2022. Very exciting. Roger is a charter engineer with extensive experience in energy and transportation and champion for innovation and modernization. So thank you, Roger. Josh Simmons, AG Holdings. Josh is the Director of Operations and Business Development for AG Holdings. He's worked in energy and energy services field for 30 years and has spent the last 7 years developing and executing various e-mobility projects and programs. Josh has worked closely with several major EV and EVSE, or charging, if that's that term is not in your vernacular, EVSE manufacturers and suppliers with the aim to animate the e-mobility market in Bermuda. And I think a lot of us have run into Josh. We also have Piers Carr of Current Motors. He's the founder and CEO of Current Motors, a tech-based company that provides mobility solutions in Bermuda. And I'll say that I had the pleasure of Piers helping me out over the phone when I rented a mini car out there last time. So thank you, Piers. He's also the founder and CEO of Current Works, which is servicing and maintaining maintenance garage aimed at supporting and encouraging the adoption of electric vehicles in Bermuda, which is another key consideration as we move forward. We also have Xavier Gordon, President and CEO of Exergy Energy, Flash Motor Company. Exergy is a Canadian-based energy transitions firm focused on renewable energy generation, energy storage, and electric transportation. Flash Motors is a Caribbean-based electric mobility solution focused on marketing, making the Caribbean the world's premier region for electric transportation. The other panelists that are joining us today is William Medeiros, Managing Director of Bermuda Motors Limited and Chairman of Bermuda Automotive Distributors Association, full service automobile distributor representing BMW, Mini, Toyota, Kia, Ford, SsangYong, if I'm saying that correctly, and Fiat. And then we also have Wayne Maycock from the Samuel Jackman Prescott Polytechnic Institute as an instructor there. He's in Barbados for the last 11 years. He's responsible for teaching the certificate, diploma, and advanced diploma in motor vehicle technology, having created a proposal for hybrid and electric vehicles instruction, which was awarded full funding by the SJPI in order to outfit the workshop for the course. So that was a mouthful. What I would ask us to go ahead and kick off, Roger, if you could kick off with the buses, that's a key thing that's top of mind and out in the public sphere.
Okay, Chuck, can you hear me okay, Chuck?
Absolutely can.
All right, I am just going to, am I sharing screen now? And can you see slide 1?
Not yet.
Just let me know when a bus shows up on your screen.
As long as we don't look up from our phones when we're crossing the road and a bus is present, then we're doing good. I don't have that yet, but Aradhana can launch that presentation if you'd like.
You might have to reshare, Roger.
I'm sorry, could you say again?
You might have to reshare, I think.
Reshare? Mm-hmm. Okay, let me try that.
That's working.
Is that working now? Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. What I'd like to present today is a brief overview of the bus procurement strategy and how we went about undertaking this procurement for the low emissions buses in Bermuda. The bus fleet in Bermuda is primarily the current vehicles were procured by MAN and Moby people, so they They're based largely on the MAN A66 chassis and iterations thereof. And there's been various bus builders over the years, and the most recent being Mobi People out of Portugal. This is a diesel bus. The most recent ones are Euro 6 diesel. The first cost from factory is about $250,000, and landed, that's approximately $350,000. We have approximately 90 serviceable buses today, of which 58 of those buses are beyond their service life. So you see that it represents a huge opportunity to think about how we're doing things going forward and to make a step change, because we have a need to replenish so much of our fleet. At current, due to the age of the fleet and reliability issues, we have approximately 65 of those 90 buses in service on any given day. So the business as usual, as I described, this is the bus here. It's a very nice bus. It's a high quality bus. The capacity is 50 passengers with 38 seated and 12 standing. And the 12-year total cost of ownership for this vehicle is $746,000, so slightly more than double the purchase price. The issues that we have with this bus is that it is expensive. It's a long lead time item. It is a relatively large bus for Bermuda's roads. So as the A66 chassis grew, and our continuing marriage to that particular chassis, it resulted in a larger bus on relatively narrow roads. And you can see in this bus, it has a pretty long rear overhang, which presents issues when turning as well. It's not an accessible bus, meaning it's not a low floor. It does have 2 steps, one to enter the bus and a second step up to the floor, and it's only available in diesel. So you'll see these acronyms as we proceed through the presentation, representing costs. The bus represents size, and the next is accessibility, and the fourth is emissions. So the Government Electric Vehicle Initiative started in earnest with Rocky Mountain Institute in 2018, when we established an MOU with Rocky Mountain Institute to advance the electrification of the vehicles within Bermuda. The objective was to transition to electric buses, and a low emissions RFI was completed in 2019. This RFI included Euro 6 diesel, hybrid, diesel electric, and full battery electric. And the RFP was completed in 2020. Now, while I say the objective was to transition to electric buses, you'll note that the RFI and the RFP was open to all vehicle technologies. And that was important because we needed to have a reference point. It wasn't ever going to be electric at any cost. And certainly, depending on the outcome of the RFI and the RFP, it would have informed the timing and the feasibility of moving to electric. Fortunately, as you will see, things played out quite well in the favor of the electric vehicle, but we didn't get any submission entries for hybrid diesel electric. We received Euro 6 diesel low emissions submissions and full battery electric. So the goals of the RFP were to achieve greening, low or zero emissions, achieve accessibility vis-a-vis a low floor, to acquire an appropriately sized vehicle and one at lower cost. The RFP conclusion resulted in 3 top options, if you like. Option 1 is available in 3 months ex works and was recommended for phase 1 of the replenishment. This was an electric bus. Option 2, while accessible, has a 22-month lead time and higher cost. And option 3 was accessible and available within 4 months ex works, but was diesel only and at a higher cost than option 1. Option 1 is one of the largest bus manufacturers in the world, and option 2, interestingly, is also a global leader in electric buses. So and I have redacted the names of the vendors because I think that's perhaps at risk of being a bit biased and of less interest than the actual process involved here. So the RFP conclusion summary, as I mentioned, we set out to achieve a lower cost, appropriately sized vehicle and accessible and greening. And you can see that business as usual didn't satisfy any of these. Option one, which is the choice for phase one of the procurement, you'll see it satisfied 3 of those, but was not available in the accessible format. We are still in talks with that manufacturer and other manufacturers about achieving an appropriately sized and accessible bus for Bermuda. The challenge being finding a narrow body bus that has a forward door and supports accessibility is quite a challenge. And the introduction of the mid door on a smaller bus significantly reduces the seating capacity. So these are some of the nuances and challenges that we have with our particular environment. Option two was very desirable, and it was from a leading electric bus manufacturer. It ticked all of the boxes. It ticked lower costs, but it was not cost competitive to option one. And for that reason, option one won out. Option three, while it supported 3 out of 4 of the objectives, at the end of the day, it was still significantly more expensive than option one. And it did not provide the greening solution, which supported the forward direction of the country in terms of its zero emissions and low emissions policies. So just moving on then to the actual 30 electric bus procurement, the stacked cost. So what we did was, and again, I would just like to echo my gratitude for the support that RMI has provided throughout the analysis of the procurement. And what you're looking at here is a stacked cost. The blue represents the initial capital cost for 30 buses over 12 years of life, the total fuel costs over that 12-year period, and then lastly, the total repair and maintenance cost. So the initial cost of the electric bus is approximately 60% less than the capital cost of business as usual. Now that's huge because we've heard that electric vehicles are more expensive than ICE vehicles, and in many scenarios that is the case. However, we had worked ourselves into a position where we were procuring a very bespoke and expensive product for Bermuda's buses. And so pretty much any product which was a production vehicle, be it diesel or electric, was going to be significantly lower cost. And in this instance, this product coming out of Asia and the Far East was extremely competitive by comparison to the cost of some of the European products. So with that said, you will see that the total stacked cost for the total cost of ownership for 30 buses over the 12-year period under business as usual is 22 million and approximately 12 million for the newly procured bus. So we were very excited to achieve not only the energy efficiency, to have a production vehicle that was available at a shorter lead time, but also to achieve significant cost savings for the public and the government of Bermuda. Some of the environmental benefits, when we look at the 110 bus fleet, I mentioned that we have 90 buses in our fleet now. The full fleet complement should be at 110. And so what you're looking at here is the metric tons of CO2 that is associated with 110 bus fleet under business as usual, under the current grid, and under the projected grid, which is subject to realization of the IRP for the electric utility and the integration of renewables. What we can say is that the moving, even under the current grid, moving the entire bus fleet, the 110 bus fleet, to electric will achieve approximately the equivalency of removing 1,500 vehicles from Bermuda's roads, and moving to the 2035 projected grid, the emissions would then further reduce to realize the equivalent of 2,400 cars from Bermuda's roads. So the emphasis there is not only are we eliminating the roadside emissions and those particulates that are of concern to public health, but also going forward, the ability to regulate the power coming from a single stack or multiple stacks at the utility is a lot more controlled than 50,000 plus odd vehicles on Bermuda's roads. And also it provides an opportunity that as the grid begins to green, then so reduces the emissions associated with public transportation. Okay, so we are in the midst of deploying and installing charging infrastructure at our Fort Langton depot. This is an aerial Google Maps view of the main bus depot, and the red lines is simply indicating the routing of the transmission upgrades that will come into the facility and the locations of the initial phase of the charging stations at the depot. So just a brief overview of the fleet replenishment program for the Bermuda electric buses. In phase 1, we are procuring 30 of the selected electric buses. In the subsequent year, we are projecting to procure 38 of those buses, which will replace our 2005 to 2008 series buses. In year 3, we're projecting another 30 buses. And then we have the remaining 12 buses, those are our 2018 and 2019 buses. So they're very new. And so they will be the last in the fleet to be displaced. So we see a 10-year window. However, largely, probably about 90% of our fleet will be converted to electric within the first 3 years, and that represents about 98 buses. Okay, so the key benefits, just in summary, this is my last slide. By replenishing the bus fleet, we hope to have a more reliable fleet and eliminate the daily cancellations. I know that's a very sore topic as the bus service is not running today. The low bus cost, 50% life cycle savings for the government, smaller buses having appropriately sized buses, which improves road safety and also reduces accident damage and cost of operations. The greening element supporting public health and the environment with improved air quality, a faster delivery of production vehicle with 3 months delivery ex works, quiet and clean buses improving the passenger experience for both locals and visitors. The economic stimulus with construction activity for the installation of and construction of charging infrastructure, and reduced electricity rates as off-peak demand will improve the power plant utilization and lower the overall cost of generation for all grid consumers. So with that said, I'll stop sharing. That's me done there, Chuck.
All right, if I can find my mute button, Roger. Incredibly encouraging. The one thing I'm caught on is 90% of the fleet is going to be replaced with zero emissions in as soon as 3 years. That is astounding and wonderful news. I would invite folks to enter any specific bus questions into the chat, but let's move on with the other speakers and then we'll come back around. And again, what we're trying to do here is highlight, the activities that are already underway in Bermuda, and it's largely centered on fleet electrification, which, is a central theme as we're talking about here today. So Josh, if you were ready to go, could you go ahead and share your screen? And Josh is going to talk to us about Belco's fleet, who has been electrifying for some number of years now.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you can see and hear me. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can see my screen. Yes.
Yes.
My presentation. Okay. Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Great to have a conversation amongst a group of peers that understand the language and are interested in the same things. E-mobility is something that the company and myself have been involved with for quite a few years. What I want to do today is essentially run through a quick overview of who we are and what we've done to date from an e-mobility perspective. Start off with. So just a quick overview of the structure of the company for those that are not aware, because I know we have some people that may not be quite familiar with the Bermuda landscape. We are a Liberty Group, and Liberty Group of companies is a large greening, essentially a greening company, green energy company based out of Canada, and we're split up into 4 different sections. They are East, West, Central, and Bermuda region. So Liberty Bermuda consists of 2 streams of business. One, the regulated side, and the non-regulated side. The regulated side is Belco. It produces the electricity for the island, and AG Holdings is the non-regulated side, and we basically deal with a lot of energy services, HVAC, engineering, procurement, and e-mobility company. So just talking through the e-mobility strategy. So we've been active in the e-mobility space for well over a decade. Really, I think it was mentioned earlier, you know, we've actually noted and recognized the value that e-mobility could bring to the island and to our business long before the lithium-ion kind of technology changed. And had done some significant kind of work on the island already, you know, before that. But I think what really happened was when battery technology kind of made a step change, it kind of allowed kind of vehicles to become a little bit more accessible, and it just kind of helped with the availability, albeit not as great as we'd like to see it, but it kind of allowed us to go ahead and try to drive e-mobility into the company's overall strategy. We looked to say we were going to do this adoption across all of our group of companies, and we really thought of ourselves as to be the early adopters, was to kind of show people what it could be like, you know, lead by example. And even more so, we recognize the value that e-mobility and electric vehicles brings to the grid when it comes to just the large fixed costs for our regulated company, and allows us to take pressure off the rates. So really at that point, it wasn't really something that was really embedded hugely within our strategy at the time. There was a few forward thinkers within the group and the executive that decided, look, let's go ahead with some pilots and do some stuff and kind of see what we can do to get this e-mobility thing up and rolling. Once we kind of done a few pilots, we really saw the benefit of this, and really we got buy-in from the board and whatnot, and we really got to actually, you know, we weave this into our actual strategy. Whereas today it's actually a very, very significant part of what we do and where we see ourselves moving forward. Just quickly going through the strategy. Also, we liked, obviously, we felt we were a prime jurisdiction for e-mobility. One of the biggest pieces is the fuel cost versus kilowatt hour, and you know, we could see a really a big benefit in cost savings, and it was a win-win really for ourselves from a business perspective, that we could save some money. We can save money in fuel and operational costs, but we could also, as I said, if we could animate the market and get people kind of moving on this, we could really take rate pressure off. It also allowed us to prepare for Utility 2.0 and the things that we're seeing, the struggles that most utilities are seeing now with centralized service. So to kind of decentralize electricity and kind of get into some demand side management options, it's that e-mobility piece really fits well. And we're really looking forward to seeing kind of where this goes, so we can start getting involved in a lot of demand response and grid modernization applications that are there. From this initial work, we decided to branch out and develop an e-mobility company, Z-Moto, Zero Emissions Motors. This company is created for the sole purpose of accelerating and animating the electric vehicle movement or the electric vehicle adoption in Bermuda. We started off a lot of this with, looking to kind of provide an exclusive EV dealership catering to residential and commercial markets. So, it's something that we're not interested in ICE vehicles with this company. We see that as a thing of the past. So we really aligned ourselves with a full EV. We also were looking at future motorcycle options, and it's really, as I said before, looking to kind of reverse the load erosion that we're seeing naturally that's happening through people adopting kind of LEDs, energy efficient HVAC, solar storage, stuff like that. So we're really looking to see how we can play in this space and be sustainable as we do it. We knew that Bermuda is really the policy environment, and the high cost of fossil fuels and our driving habits of our people really lends itself well to a company like this. Just go through some of the e-mobility activities to date, and we've got quite a few. We started with our Belco intermediate and light truck fleets. We currently have a conversion of all of our vehicles now at 18 vans. We typically try to spread ourselves amongst all of the suppliers on the island. So, at some points, and we talk about kind of availability being a key issue that we face, that would be the number one. Is, where we're happy to kind of go out and utilize various brands and kind of encourage that, because it is part of the animation of the entire EV, kind of the e-mobility activity on the island. Our air care fleet, we're ongoing conversion with those. We're currently at 7 vans. We'd like to be a lot further ahead, but once again, supply is an issue for us. So we're having to kind of get ourselves in with some, secondhand fleets that we can kind of bring on board that still have some life to them. Hopefully these are just kind of a bridging units until we can get ourselves some kind of brand new fit for purpose vehicles. We introduced the Belco EV Carpool, and that's grown quite significantly. And we've just added a Liberty Carpool vehicle to our fleet. So we have 5 of those. And those consist of Renault Zoes and the Kia Souls. We also went for a bucket truck fleet conversion. Unfortunately, we were unable to do a BEV option with this just because we didn't have anything that was fit for purpose. But we decided to meet it halfway and do a hybrid power takeoff. So kind of utilizing a more efficient diesel engine, utilizing the battery for the buckets and whatnot. Also helps a lot with idling of our fleets when our crews are working around, and it helps for the health and safety of our people as well. We found some really good benefits there. We were very involved in the installation and the support of the charging for the 35th America's Cup. We've installed our 6 ports networks chargers, the public infrastructure chargers. They were never kind of, we basically done them as an internal test, and we just wanted to kind of see what the system was like, how it worked. And, we'll definitely be working to support further, public infrastructure as we move forward. We really like the support. We've supported several local companies with the introduction of various vehicles and charging infrastructure, really looking to kind of leverage what we know and what we have now to kind of, lower some of the barriers to adoption. We've designed and installed our Belco fleet charging asset, and I really think that's something that we're really proud of, because that is it's a high quality, it's a very robust, a very it's a high quality and a very reliable system that we've put in there. We have participated in the Bermuda Working Group, EV Working Group. We currently, through IPC, provide engineering, design, budgeting, and project management support. We also are in the retail sale and installation of EVSE or EV chargers. And we also have developed and launched our internal EV rebate program for our employees to take a part of. So that's limited to this year, but we see that moving forward, that we will be doing that more. We kind of reached out to all of the vendors, ready to say, look, guys, what do you have available? And then we can bring that to our employee base and, you know, give people those options to say, look, if you want to take advantage of of electrifying, go ahead now. We'll offer our own kind of cost, you know, and the rebate was a cashback rebate plus charging installation. So this is just a shot of our Belco intermediate fleet. This is kind of the first fleet that we really completed wholesale, along with the actual charging infrastructure that we dropped in. This was also networked charged, so we used the charge point system out of the US on this as the overarching kind of backbone of it. And that charging stations, we've very high reliability, even through the numerous hurricanes and weather scenarios and the sun and soil. We tend to find that the product and the quality that we have here is really, really high. So very, very high adoption. I mean, utilization rates on this as well. So one of our air care vans using the ENV200. Once again, these are vehicles that we're having to find piecemeal ones and twos from a secondhand market or a gray market. We are really waiting for kind of the supply to kind of allow us to go and purchase a large wholesale stuff, so we can get these fleets changed out quicker. And these are just a quick shot of our one of our Belco carpool fleets, along with the public access charger that you see it linked into, and our newest Liberty fleet. So obviously the e-mobility strategy and benefits are there's a lot of them here. We've seen reduction in our fuel costs up 70%. Maintenance costs are down by 65 to 70%. We look to see that all 60 of our vehicles will be electrified by the end of our initiative, and our initiative was originally at 2025. So we're still keeping those, hopefully that we can you know, get ourselves a supply, ample supply to get that change to happen. We've run our intermediate fleet for over 5 years, the reliability of over 95, basically over 98% reliability on that. Very little kind of degradation in our batteries or failures and stuff like that. So very happy with the products that we've chosen. The future considerations is for scooters. Maybe we'll go for our metering staff, whatnot. So we're definitely always on the lookout for a smaller and more kind of vehicles that we can kind of utilize throughout our entire, you know, operations. And I think from the environmental piece, obviously you know, the reduction of the tailpipe emissions and the reduction of noise, public health and safety is key for us. Also the reduction of occupational health and safety risks for our Belco people, and also our air care staff and IFM staff that work around their vehicles a lot, and we're reducing the environmental risks by limiting the volumes of flammable fuels in liquids along the island as well. Finally, my last slide here is going to be on the challenges and opportunities that we see. Obviously, Bermuda's, you know, we are a limited size, and it poses a challenge to us. Whenever we are out talking to, you know, dealers or suppliers, it's always kind of that the Bermuda space is very small, and it doesn't lend itself, although it lends itself well to testing a project and telling a story. The economics sometimes just cause people to go the other way when dealing with Bermuda. We're looking at education is going to be key for adoption. You know, the range anxiety, technology anxiety, all these different things people worry about. And I think it's great. What happens is if we look at making our fleets electric and we allow people to experience that EV and e-mobility kind of platform with no risk to their own personal vehicle, that's really driven people to say, yeah, my next car or my next vehicle will be electric. So we're doing a good job there. And I think, you know, Piers is coming up next, and I think he's done a fantastic job in the advocacy of electric vehicles as well, because it allows people in a fairly risk-free environment to kind of get in one, try it out, you know, feel it out, and take some of that anxiety away from them. Prices are still a bit of a challenge right now. You know, as was talked earlier, battery pricing is going to be critical. I think once we see the once scale kind of comes into play, I think we should see some relief on that. Steep learning curve with maintenance and safety education. We've done a lot of work with the fire department and the police department when we first introduced some of our fleet vehicles to let them have hands-on experience. And we kind of partnered with some of the retailers and the incumbent dealers on the island to have those education programs made available to the police and rescue services, just so they kind of knew what was on the road and they knew how to deal with it if they ever came across one in an accident. We're always looking at the new technology. So, you know, as we say we're going to settle on something today, we understand that it moves at a very rapid pace. So we've always got our eye on the future, just so we're ready for any changes. We also see some of the challenges with incumbents. Incumbent dealers needed to reinvest and retool for the EVs and the training requirements that will be required for that. And that's always something that we're willing as a local company who's got an interest in kind of training and development to kind of say, you know, where can we play a part in kind of assisting with training to get people more comfortable to allow and just to enable this kind of market to thrive. So that's it for me. I'll hand it back to you, Chuck. Thank you very much. I know I went a little bit over, but I try to talk fairly fast, but you know, I do what I can do.
Oh, absolutely, Josh. That's very insightful. Thank you very much. I was going to ask the question for Roger and Josh, just simply because you guys are electrifying your fleet. So there's some commonality there. You really pulled through, you know, I think you guys addressed the barriers and the recommendations as part of your delivery. It has largely pointed to supply. In Roger's case, you know, custom orders of bus, custom sizes, and then yours as well. As an aside, I love the picture you show with the fleet all charging at the same time. That is like a professional picture. I would love to use that again. I was thinking 6 Kangoos. You have far more than that, which is exciting. William, if we're talking about supply, I would ask if you could go next if you're prepared, and if not, we can shift to another speaker.
No, thanks, Chuck. Good afternoon, and a very good afternoon to you all. And I'm going to do my best at not embarrassing myself with putting something on the screen. So I'm going to share screen.
Yeah, not at all. We have you covered in case of technical failure.
Well, Christ knows I need it. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. And I think a big thank you to really to Aaron and Rocky Mountain and you know, just for making this happen. So well done.
William, could I ask if you could go to presentation view? The one I'm used to is down at the very bottom. One of the icons close to the scroll bar, if that doesn't mess you up. There you go. Maybe that's not working for us. We're fine. We can see your slides.
Yeah, I know it's messy.
Or can I suggest, William, just the last one is slideshow at the top. There's animation, slideshow, review. If you click on slideshow.
Got it.
And then from beginning, go to the far left. From beginning.
From beginning.
Yep.
Teamwork.
There you go.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Well done. Thank you. Thank you, Aaron. I don't know what you drink, but trust me, you just bought yourself a really nice bottle. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is William Medeiros. I'm the Managing Director of Bermuda Motors Limited, and I have the distinct pleasure of serving as the Chairman of the Bermuda Automotive Dealers Association. I caveat that by saying that we're not as if I can say this, as big and as important as we think BADA is, we're not the only people that are selling vehicles in Bermuda, but we are effectively the group that liaises directly with government and the various other divisions. Next slide. So there are, by best estimation, 22,650 private cars on the road. And what you'll see is how many of those vehicles are currently electric, which is, as a percentage, not high. So something like, as a cumulative total, approximately 2% of all the vehicles that are currently on the road, private cars that are on the road, are 2%. You know, if I can say it, you know, the big seller, no surprise, BMW i3. But we've made significant inroads with the Kia Soul, and in fact, I think Josh, I think you referred to that, and you having that as a vehicle. And in fact, we're very pleased to report that that's getting the Kia Soul is getting traction within the government fleet. So we're hoping to see some action there. And then we've got the Nissan Leaf, Peugeot, BMW, which is a plug-in hybrid. And then finally, we have the actual pure hybrids, and we have the Kia Niro, the Toyota CHR, the Toyota Prius C. Now, this, I think, is an interesting juxtaposition because, you know, if you look at the very first screen, you almost, you know, if you believe in the need for electric vehicles, you say, well, my God, you know, okay, you know, you're not selling. You know, you've sold some, but you're not making significant inroads. 2% doesn't matter. But what is interesting in dissecting these numbers is the number of, if I can say this, affluent buyers who are purchasing green. And that's quite significant. So what we're seeing is this very interesting socio-economic thing happening where, if I can, you know, the people that can afford, if I can say this, nicer, more expensive vehicles are opting for electric. And that's, if you'd told me that, I said, well, anecdotally, yes, white collar professionals are drawn to this brand, are drawn to this type of vehicle. But I thought it was interesting that the actual statistics support that as well. Of course, it does speak to the fact that there's a great deal more vehicle to be sold in that space. And then, if I can, very simply, what are the current offerings? Unfortunately, at the moment, given the size, which in Bermuda is length, width, and the power to weight ratio, we are somewhat hampered in as much as if you wanted to purchase a, quote, EV, and by EV, I'm counting all of them together, you're looking at 6. There are only 6 cars in Bermuda right now that fit in that category. One is the Renault Zoe, which is sold by Richard Davidge and his team at Eurocar. Great vehicle. I've seen a few of them on the road. Just because he's a competitor doesn't mean I don't respect him. He's also having success with the Kangoo. And I think, again, Josh, in fact, I saw one of these outside of my shop the other day. Don't know why you bought one of his as opposed to mine, but that's okay. I can live with that. But attractive looking vehicle. And again, sold by Richard Davidge down at Eurocar. Then we're into the space that we currently occupy. We have the BMW i3. A lot of success there, fully electric. Only slight challenge with that is that it's going out of production. That lives in the public arena. Nothing indiscreet about that. But they're finishing up on the i3 production late in 2022. So we're anxiously waiting to see what the i3 becomes going beyond there. We then have the Kia Soul. We're having a lot of success with that. in selling. Our challenge right now is inventory, but that's more COVID related than anything else. And then we get into the plug-in hybrid, which is our BMW 225. And then, of course, we're very fortunate to have the Toyota CHR, which is a hybrid, and again, having quite some success there. I've kept my presentation short. I remarked that earlier, if you wanted to purchase an electric vehicle from myself or one of my fellow association members, there are only 6 vehicles that you can choose from. We are, and I saw Mr. Spencer earlier as one of the attendees, we are in active discussion with Transport Control Department and the ministry specifically about the relaxation of the regulations as it relates specifically and only to electric vehicles. Those of us in Bermuda are obviously very well aware of the very very tough, tight restraints, length, width, power to weight. And of course, it's interesting if you just chat for a second about the power to weight, the fact these cars are becoming so incredibly efficient in terms of generating energy. And of course, the reason, and of course, the manufacturers concurrent with that are using lightweight construction, whether it's carbon fiber, whether it's impact resistant plastics. So the weight's coming down at the same time that the energy is going up. So one of the hopes is that if the ministry is amenable to allowing modest, and I refer to modest relaxation, length, width, power to weight, then we could potentially see something like 11 additional vehicles. That's 11 in addition to the 6 that would be available for purchase in Bermuda. We're not at liberty to explain exactly what those vehicles are because some of that information is proprietary to the distributors. But overnight, you go from having 6 cars that you can purchase that are electric to now having 17, and that's a big game changer, we think. Ladies and gentlemen, that's me.
Thank you very much, William. I don't know it's inappropriate for me as moderator, but I want to add some information in to the conversation here around 2-wheelers or bikes. So the auxiliary and electric. We have had those conversations recently, but we don't have participation today. One gentleman, Eugene Botello, is running some staffing challenges due to COVID, and he is not able to support us today. If we look at the count that William showed us, that we're generally 50,000 vehicles on island, almost 20,000 of those are 2-wheelers. So we're bumping up against about 40% of the rolling stock is a key opportunity for 2. And we have an India program, so I often find myself saying 2 and 3-wheelers, but in your case, 2-wheelers. What's important about that is the volume of sales that we see on any given year around the 2-wheelers. This aligns well with banning the desire to ban 2-stroke. Maybe we can just leapfrog and ban internal combustion 2-wheelers altogether in some number of years that's in front of us. So 2 things I want to mention about the 2-wheelers. There are a plethora of options out there, and I think we heard it from Joan earlier today. We need to guard against being dumped on. So we don't want to end up in the situation where we're bringing bad quality, and they're not even bad quality. Maybe they degrade faster than we'd expect in the harsh environment that Bermuda brings. So that's one concern. We're already at price parity on 2-wheelers, so that's very encouraging. The open question really around 2-wheelers is charging. And, Piers, you may know this better than I, so correct me where I'm wrong. But the inverter is off board, so it's not on the 2-wheeler itself in these cases. So that creates some outside charging challenges when we come to 2-wheelers. And then the other one, we see this taking place in India as well, as the swappable battery. They've standardized around a swappable battery, so we don't necessarily have to plug in. And so that's an open question for us, whether that's a path that Bermuda may want to go down or not. And I have looked at the Japanese manufacturers, all 4 of those as well, and they have standardized around a swappable battery. So that may become the de facto. It's nothing to slow us down. And I'll add on that the post office, Josh, you had mentioned this around scooters, where that works, a little bit better than a car. So I think the post office will be looking to procure electric scooters as well as a good trial coming up. And when I mentioned the charging, turns out those vehicles are stored indoors, so we're not going to have that issue. So we have price parity. 2-wheelers are upon us, a very large portion of the rolling stock, but we do have a question around charging. And with that, Piers, are you ready to roll? I know you had some things in front of you, but if you're ready to roll, let's hear from you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was waiting on a charge point delivery, actually. So they weren't very accommodating to my my commitment. But anyway, can you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Good stuff. Well, thank you guys for having me very much. Great to be here, and obviously to see so many familiar faces who support the adoption of EVs. For those that don't know me, my name's Piers Carr, and I am the founder and CEO of Current Vehicles Limited. So better known as the Twizzies, although we've recently just added to our fleet, and we're rolling out the Citroen Ami as a new rental option. So you might see those on the road soon here in Bermuda. Just a bit about what we do. We launched Current Vehicles in 2017, essentially to provide a greener and safer form of rental transportation for visitors to Bermuda. Obviously, prior to that, the only options were gas-powered bikes, and we know that was not the most practical means of helping people get around. So we thought by introducing a 4-wheeler that had a lot of characteristics of a bike, but also with the stability of a car and the familiarity of a car, that we would not only make Bermuda a more desirable place because we provide additional transportation options, but we'd also give greater accessibility to the island. And by that, I mean getting people out and about and seeing what Bermuda has to offer from a tourism standpoint, and hopefully getting people to spend more money at businesses because they can have a means to get around. So for all the reasons discussed by the other presenters earlier, Bermuda was perfect for this initiative. Gas being expensive here, the island small enough that range anxiety did not or doesn't really exist, and building out a network of charge points to power these vehicles was attainable, although not easy. We'd often have to work with private property owners to try and get charge points installed, but it was obviously key to the success of what we were trying to do as a rental business to have those charge points. And it's still an issue we face now. I think we've deployed close to 400 charge points around the island so far. Some of those, or most of those, are on public property, but a lot of them have been deployed at Airbnbs and private residences. But we still face an issue there. The range of our vehicles is such that we need to keep adding to our network of charge points. But also, the modern traveler is increasingly eco-conscious and care about their impact that they have when traveling. So something like this was perfect. They could rent a small electric vehicle, go out and explore their immediate environment, and just use that for the time that they're here versus having a larger, more expensive car sitting in a car park somewhere. Also, the benefit of us, one of the byproducts of what we were trying to do was, as Josh alluded to earlier, was to showcase the potential of EVs to Bermudians and to show them that, either they get a chance to drive them or just to see them out on the road, and it gets them thinking and it gets them talking about the potential of electric vehicles here in Bermuda. So our hope was that we would create demand and adoption for vehicles. And obviously, the quicker we transition over as a country to electric vehicles, it provides a good marketing opportunity for the island showcase to the outside world that Bermuda is at the forefront of the adoption of electric vehicles. We only have exclusively electric rental vehicles, and I think that that would be, you know, a potentially powerful marketing strategy for Bermuda. Obviously, you know, for those that know our business, we've and our industry as a whole, we've faced some challenges along the way, and I think that's the case anytime you introduce a new industry to Bermuda. You know, you're upsetting the status quo, and it needs to be thought out very carefully because it has a large impact on other industries and the island as a whole. You know, perhaps our biggest issue right now is supply versus demand. So the rental industry makes up about just over 1/3 of electric vehicles on the road right now. So if that number was 601, I think as an industry, we've got about 215 rental EVs on the island. That's not us current, but that's the industry as a whole. Yet we can still only cater to about 5% of air visitors on the island at any given time. And that number is significantly lower when you account for the additional and significant demand from the local population. So you know, obviously we appreciate that there are challenges when it comes to putting more vehicles on the road. We're a small island, roads are narrow and easily congested, and parking's at a premium. So obviously rental vehicles need to be restricted as far as numbers, but it would be great to see additional vehicles and get further support from government to put more vehicles on the road. Similar to the retail sector, we're restricted by the size and power to weight ratio that we're allowed to offer. So vehicles can be no longer than 120 inches and no wider than 63 inches, with a maximum output of 40 horsepower or the equivalent of, and only have 2 seats. So this leaves very few model options available for us to purchase, and often means we need to sacrifice either on the safety features or the manufacturing quality, just so that they can fit the regulations. So, you know, and it also eliminates the ability for us to rent to families who are down here. So it restricts our offering. So it'd be nice to see perhaps, you know, if we could address a minor update to the regulations from a size or power to weight ratio, just to bring in some of the other options that are coming down the line, and I think would be popular rental options here in Bermuda. COVID obviously has put had a massive impact on this rental industry, and has sort of led us to pivot slightly and cater more towards the local market. And so what we're looking to do is to introduce more of a mobility sharing service, and that is a phone-based option, giving locals the ability at heavily discounted rates, so a subscription model. They will be able to use their phone, pay a subscription, let's say $50 a month, and get 50% off rentals, and they can rent by the minute, by the hour, by the day, or by the month. So that is where we're starting to go, and that gives us the ability to provide a contactless solution to our rental business. Right now, it's very face-to-face. Customer comes in having got off a plane 2 days or a day before, and then interacts with our staff, and we wanted to provide a safer option. So with this new service, we give locals the ability to pick up, to commute using an electric vehicle at a cost-effective price, and give them the ability to, again, experience electric vehicles, and then either use it as their day-to-day form of transportation, which will, you know, perhaps cut down the overall number of vehicles on the road, but it would also provide cost savings. Running a car is expensive here, and as we're probably aware, they sit idle for 90%, 95% of their time, and incredibly expensive. So we're looking at new ways to incorporate technology so that we can provide transportation options, not just for our tourists, but for locals alike. And that's where we're focusing our energy and attention going forward. That's basically what I have to say on our side of the business. But yeah, certainly here if anyone's got any questions.
Thank you, Piers. A quick reflection, you know, as we can all tell, really out at the forefront of pushing new ideas and models. And Roger, I'm looking at you, this whole idea of, comprehensive mobility solutions where, public bus is complementary with what we like to call micromodal. It'd be mini modal. I think in your case is, I love where you guys are going with this to address congestion and get past the challenge, the very real challenge of, one car per household. Related to that, we have Xavier talking about taxis and taxi electrification. So I think that's a really good segue if we're morphing over to mobility. And then we have one other speaker after that. We're doing good on time, so let's hear from the other two, and then I think we can have a pretty robust Q&A. Xavier, are you ready to share?
I am. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
All right, awesome. Let's get my screen shared.
All right, looking good.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm wearing two hats today. Physically, I'm wearing one hat, but in the presentation, I'll talk about the two businesses that we have and how that sort of relates to e-mobility and transit solutions. So Exergy Energy, that's the sort of the origin of our companies here. Founded in 2012 here in Toronto, Canada. We have a project portfolio of over 500 small and medium residential and commercial solar PV system sites, and over 150 plus private and public charging electric vehicle charging infrastructure sites. Typically we work with utilities, cities, regions, private businesses on getting EV charging stations up and running for them. We're a full scope provider. EPC, engineering, procurement, and construction for these technologies, operations and maintenance, project development, as well as consulting, particularly in electric transportation. And that's sort of where we got our start in the Caribbean around 2017. We've done a number of projects across the region. Currently, we're engaged very heavily in Jamaica with about 3 different projects with different stakeholders, both government, multilateral banks, as well as private institutions and utilities on electric mobility. We've also done quite a bit of work across both the Atlantic and the Caribbean as well too. Of particular note in Bermuda, working with the RMI team on some of the transit initiatives earlier on in the process. We've done work in St. Lucia, Barbados, Grenada, Guyana, Belize, and Barbados to a certain extent as well too. So we've been doing quite a bit of work across the region, helping various stakeholders sort of understand the EV market, take us over experience here in Canada and making that applicable in the Caribbean. Now, a lot of that work has sort of led us towards our new sister company, which is Flash Motors, which really operates as a full solution provider when it comes to electric mobility. And when I talk about that, we're talking about both supply and service of battery electric vehicles, as well as EVSE, electric vehicle service equipment, or EV charging stations, both level 2 and level 3. One of the projects we're currently doing, we're working with the JPS, which is the utility company in Jamaica, on deploying level 2 and level 3 charging stations. We have the first 2 up and running in Ocho Rios, as well as in Montego Bay. We have some other ones going up over the course of the rest of the year, both level 2 and level 3s. Which is really cool and exciting. 100 kilowatt really rapid charging stations that are I think among the fastest in the Caribbean at this point. We're also supplying battery electric vehicles across the region as well. We are headquartered in Kingston, Jamaica, but we are a regional company providing 2 projects across the region. We also do financing for corporate, government, and tourism fleets, 25 vehicles or more. And, we can help our customers sort of achieve their targets either through lease, finance, or PPPs in the case of governments as well. So when we talk about public transit and specifically taxi fleets, they are some of the best use cases, along with, public transit buses, as Roger was sort of, elaborating on earlier, for electric vehicles. And, part of the reason is because of their high mileage. EVs primarily are an advantage when it comes to operations. So what I mean by that is the more you drive an EV, the more you're actually saving, because we're talking about operational costs, fuel costs, maintenance costs. So taxis are obviously a very, very straightforward and very key and clear value proposition when it comes to electric mobility. They do a number of things. One is they cost a lot less to operate on a per kilometer basis. Based on the studies and some of the vehicles that we have already deployed across the region, we are seeing anywhere between 60 to almost 80% savings on a per kilometer basis when it comes to driving an electric vehicle. So obviously, again, the more you drive an electric vehicle, the more you're going to be able to save. Some of the other advantages that come with electrified taxis are eliminating tailpipe emissions for both the driver, who has to be in that vehicle all day, the passenger, who has a limited but still important interaction with the vehicle, and the areas of operation, which tend to be urban centers or airports or tourism related areas when we start speaking about the Atlantic region or in the Caribbean. That's something that's not necessarily quantified as well as, say, operational savings, but it is nonetheless pretty important. We've also found that it's a better interior environment for the people that are interacting. What I mean is that reduced noise and vibration. If you think of yourself as a taxi operator who's driving in a vehicle 8, 10, 12 hours a day, there's a lot of noise and vibration that comes along with that. And while we are sort of used to that, it actually does add up in terms of stress on the body and stress on your system. And we found, both here in Canada, as well as some of our test cases in the Atlantic and Caribbean region, that it's a much better work environment when we start taking into account, people just prefer to drive EVs. If you're going to be in a vehicle for a very long period of time, you much rather the operation that comes with an EV. So, we've definitely been speaking with RMI and with the government, just floating concepts of, what a Bermuda e-taxi fleet should look like. A number of things have sort of come up, both from taxi operators, in a lot of the countries that we're speaking with. One is, how can we de-risk the technology? And by de-risking the technology, we're talking about how can we make operators feel comfortable with the change in the technology. It's not a big leap, but it's still something that people are sort of concerned about. So for the operators, they sort of want to be able to de-risk that as much as possible. Also from a maintenance and parts and service point of view, how do we ensure that, operators and owners of e-taxis can be assured that they're going to get the same level or a higher level of service when it comes to making sure that the vehicles are on the road. So that's going to be very important, and that comes from both the supply chain as well as the service providers. Gentlemen from Belco had talked quite a bit about making sure that training and tooling and upskilling service technicians is going to be very important, and so that's a big part of some of the things that Flash Motors provides as well. Making sure we can de-risk what those changes are going to be. Next is de-risking the financial commitment. As it stands right now in 2020-21, electric vehicles, especially battery electric vehicles, full battery electric vehicles, are more expensive than their gasoline or diesel counterparts. And while we do note that that extra capital cost can be recovered on the operations, it's still a significant financial commitment upfront. And by significant, depending on the type of vehicle, you could be looking at anywhere between 15% to as much as 40% more in the capital costs. So how do we de-risk some of that financial commitment to ensure that people are able to enjoy the operational cost savings that comes along with EVs? So usually that's done with, again, having different financial services that understand the risk of EVs and the benefits of EVs and are able to pass that on to the end owner, or having different financial models for helping more operators get behind the wheel of a battery electric vehicle. The other main point is then making sure that the operators can capture some of the improvement in economic performance. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure operators and passengers are able to either get a more profitable service on the road, or a cheaper service on the road, or a combination of both. So, we want to make sure that people are more incentivized to use e-taxi fleets, which obviously puts a much lower strain on public infrastructure and roads by getting more people into shared vehicle services. The gentleman before me with the Twizy portfolio, you know, he made a great point in terms of how a lot of these sort of like e-mobility services can be used not just for tourists or occasional visitors, but can also be leveraged for the local population that can, again, further help public infrastructure and roads. Get more people into shared services is a key thing. The fourth point, again, is, you know, capturing improvement in tailpipe emissions. Again, making the public roads and the public roadways a much better place for people and a much healthier place for people. With taxis being on the road pretty much all the time, how can we ensure that, you know, those routes are being serviced and being, you know, fashioned in a way that, you know, public health is at the priority. And lastly, one of the parts that we think is also important is striving for local sources of fuel. So what I mean is, how can we produce electricity locally, on site or close to site, and in a renewable manner? That's an opportunity that wasn't previously available with gasoline and diesel, but now is available with electrified platforms. And so exploring what the concepts look like for on-site generation. There are a lot of examples both in Europe and East Asia, Singapore, Shenzhen in China. We've seen a couple examples in Japan as well too, where taxi parks or car parks will typically have solar generation on board or on site, coupled with some energy storage and, of course, you know, charging infrastructure to allow for those operators to be able to, you know, recharge during their downtime, their off time, whether it's lunchtime or, you know, if they're returning their vehicles to the depot, overnight charging like Department of Public Transit would be doing for their buses, to allow for, again, you know, completely emissions-free and locally sourced fuel, which is again an important opportunity that hasn't been available just as yet. So, you know, if we're designing a e-taxi fleet or e-taxi fleet program, these are sort of the 5 things that we would bring to that program, and then obviously engaging with a number of, you know, local players to ensure that this can sort of happen. That's pretty much it from my perspective in terms of what we think a Bermuda e-taxi fleet would look like. I'm happy to answer questions or sort of engage, you know, in an appropriate time as Chuck sees fit.
Thank you, Xavier. You know, we're going with this model to make sure that everybody's getting their perspective out, you know, presentations first. So let's stick with that. Exciting to hear about what you guys have going on with taxis, absolutely. And to share a little bit of our work that EJ really leads up on the Uber and Lyft side. You know, one of the biggest things we run into with taxis and what we like to call ride hail or shared rides is these are independent businesses. The drivers are making their, you know, their economic decision that makes the most sense to them. So getting them in a new vehicle, much less a more expensive new electric vehicle, is one of the bigger hurdles that we're all trying to attack and solve from different angles. So I'll leave that there. We have heard a couple of times around serviceability. It's making its way into the business models of a couple of folks here, well, which is great. That's always a question when we're looking to procure vehicles, especially when we think about fleets. I mean, uptime is the critical issue. These aren't just sitting on the curb, you know, 95% of the time, like our private vehicles do. So Wayne, if we could hear from you about the service side, that'd be really helpful.
Chuck, I had one more thing I forgot to note. We will have some electric taxis in Jamaica starting in November. So it's a great time to sort of do some proof of concept work as well too with taxi specific electric vehicles.
I hear a call that we all need to head to Jamaica so we can check out the taxis. Sounds
anytime.
Good.
You guys just let me know.
Wayne, are you able to share your screen?
Good afternoon, everyone. I will try not to embarrass myself, as someone else said before.
We are in a safe environment here.
So,
you got it.
All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Waymaker, as you can see on the screen, and I am from Barbados. I hope that my accent don't throw anyone off and that you can follow what I am saying. It is a real honor to be invited to this summit, and I hope that my presentation will enlighten you in some way. The Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute of Technology, before it was the Samuel Jackman Prescott Polytechnic, we are one of 2 technical institutions in Barbados, and I'm going to be sharing based on what we have done throughout the automotive, where the automotive industry is concerned. Not that we only teach automotive, but we teach from agriculture, we teach electrical installation, any technical area that you can think about, we usually offer at the Samuel Jackman Institute of Technology. Now, just a little more background here, you can see our mission statement, where we, the mission of the SJP is to produce skilled and innovative graduates through competency-based training and promote lifelong learning. And we know that that's very important. So from my supply side, everybody was speaking today about from a dealer perspective, from a installer perspective, and so on. But our side is a little different. So our vision of the SJP is to be a global center of excellence for technological and vocational education and training. All right. Now, with that said, I just want to show you part of our main campus to give you a glimpse, and I can also introduce you to our principal, Mr. Ian Drates. Now, in the background, you can see part of our facility as well in the automotive division. And my supervisor will be Mr. Gregory Brewster. And who's the person that I will report directly to where it comes to our automotive engineering program. From my bio, one mistake was made. I was actually at the institution for 21 years, not 11. But that is not that important right now. Now, we have been teaching engine systems, or I should say ICE engines for forever. And obviously, when we saw what was happening, we decided it would be a good thing to decide to go towards seeing how we can offer training to the young lads. And to say the young lads, we are a tertiary level institution. So we offer training from persons from 16 years of age and up. So we prepare them basically for the job market. Yeah. Now, just a little bit on Barbados. Barbados is 166 square miles. We have a population of 284,000. We have 131,000, well, almost 132,000 privately registered vehicles. So we have like 1.2 vehicles per employed person. And if you look at the barrels of oil, 3,500 barrels of oil per day, 165,000 US dollars per day. So we spend a considerable amount of money as it relates to supplying fuel and so on to our vehicles in Barbados. So just some general facts. The private sector that was said earlier was the push to EV vehicles in Barbados, and they went ahead and they actually laid a lot of the groundwork and all the chargers. Now this information is pretty old information in terms of 119 total EV chargers. On my research now, and this is from PlugShare, on my research now, I'm from the same private sector company, they have installed over 500 chargers throughout Barbados, right? And so things are really going forward at a very speedy rate as it relates to the EV introduction into this small country. Now, a little more information. We have 49 buses owned by the government of Barbados on island today. And I hope that this information is correct as well. Probably Miss Jo Edgehill, when she shares a little later, she may change. But from my research, we have 550 vehicles that Megapower has sold where EV vehicles are concerned. And Courtesy Garage, the dealers for Nissan and Hyundai, have sold just about 20 to date, just about 20 EV vehicles. Now, we still have some persons in Barbados that are not fully comfortable with the fully electric vehicle. So they're still going towards the hybrid vehicle, which is, as you would know, I'm speaking to our audience that know, which is a combination of the ICE engine and the electric motor. And so we have from Courtesy again, who would have sold about 30 Handy, the Iconic, if that's how it's pronounced. NASCO, who's agents for Toyota, they would have sold to date probably 85 hybrid vehicles. ANSA Motors, you guys in Trinidad should be familiar with ANSA Motors. Currently, McInerney, they sold the Kia Niro, and they sold about 75 vehicles to date. And non-dealers, these are persons that we have on island that just will bring in vehicles from out of Japan, out of the UK, and according to and this is only an estimated number or capacitors, and so they can see the capacitors and so on within the inverter, and it also have a battery as well that we can also have a look internal of the battery and so on. This is our running hybrid, where we once again, we didn't bring a full car for this. We brought an actual running hybrid on a stand. It can be started. Faults can be programmed into it the same way on the engine side and on the motor side. So where we can actually go through, once again, programming certain faults within the system. And when these faults are programmed, the students have to go through a sequential way of diagnosing what the problem is, right?
Wayne, are we able to, can we wrap up? We're at time.
Okay, no problem. That was the main, my main points. All right.
I was trying to catch you at a point in time that felt like a natural spot. So very informative. I appreciate that, the insights here and showing us what's going on and not just with the componentry, but around training as well.
Yeah.
We've run our time now. We need to head over to break. And EJ, I'll hand that over, just have a closing comment here. I don't have many questions that have shown up in chat. I'll just toss this one at you, Josh, to follow up with later or even on chat. We want to know, where are the Belco 6 public charging stations? We need to get that out into the ether and those who are driving EVs. We did expect these two sessions to be, heavy information sharing and light on Q&A. So I would ask you all if you could stay around after the 4:30 close, when we'll do the breakout rooms and we can share some information here. Appreciate hearing from all the speakers. It's very exciting. There are a couple of common threads in here around supply, availability, and even first price. So, Wayne, in one sense, we're going to toss that back to you. But picking up on the keynote that we heard from Minister Scott, Ministry of Transport is really looking for that import of what do we need to change the landscape and really move to electrification. And I think a lot of the things here that we've talked about over this last hour and a half fit within that well. We do expect to hold a roundtable over some of these issues over the next couple of weeks. So we'll be, reaching out to you guys and see if we could schedule that so that we have an hour or two or a half a day to really discuss the issues and determine what does make the most sense. And then we heard regionally as well, where can we collaborate more through CCRE or a CARICOM perspective on these issues and really drive the signal to the manufacturers of what we're looking to do, collaboratively. With that, let's just kind of close this session, let EJ